Hi, everybody, and welcome to the weekly show. We are so excited to have you here, whether you're watching live or on demand. Thank you for tuning in. This week, we're all about virtual networking, how to make it work, and we're going to give you, my guest is packed full of real life examples on how you can make this work. So listen, digest, take them away, get creative, and reuse them for your own purposes. But we know that these work. Okay, before we do that, I have my usual announcement and then a little demo of the SpotMe platform. So, coming soon to a screen near you, instant translation. I am so excited about this. I cannot tell you. One of the major promises of virtual is this ability to tap into a global audience. And we feel like this is one of the major steps towards that. So, check out our YouTube video. Josip, our head of product, was on with me a couple of weeks ago and briefly spoke about this. Check out the YouTube video with a link there. We'll add it to the show notes. What you'll see is how simple it is for your audience to be able to turn the live show, what's happening live, into their own language. Super simple, unlimited languages, really excited. Check out the YouTube video. Coming soon to a screen near you. Okay, so let me show you. We're all about networking this week. So what I wanted to do was show you what that looks like from a participant perspective. There's really two parts to this particular feature. What I'm going to show you is participant match. What it allows you to do is have your audience fill out a survey or a form of your choosing and building, and then the system automatically matches them with attendees, participants in the audience who they're best suited to network with. And so we'll see how easy it is to build in a minute, but I wanted to show you what it looks like from an audience perspective. Here you see a very simple form to fill in. And this basically is going to allow the system to take my preferences and then build out a match profile for me. So I fill in the form. I'm here to learn. I like product robot. I'm definitely a tea drinker, being British. I guess you're not surprised by that. I click send. And then what happens is about 15 minutes later, you can provide people with the matches that they need. So if I was to show you the right screen, let me do that again. Hang on 2 seconds. So what you should see here is I've logged into the same platform about 15 minutes later. I'm going to navigate to, in this case, the people option. I'm going to check back in on my Match Me. And what I have now is a list of fellow participants who have been matched to me. And I see percentages. Anyone with 100% means they match my profile exactly of what I'm looking for. Anyone with less than 100% is obviously a partial match. And so what this allows me to do then is I can really focus who I want to network with. So I like the look of Chuck. He has a nice profile picture. I can send him a request. You can see I've already done that here and it's pending. Once that request has been accepted by Chuck, what happens then, I get to view the rest of his information. And then I can message him. I can take notes about Chuck as we're meeting. The other cool thing is you don't necessarily want to go back into the Match Me screen every time you want to make a contact. So every time somebody accepts my request to connect, they're actually added to my contacts, which is fantastic. And then I can have a really nice way to keep in contact with the same people and keep it separate. So that's what it looks like from the audience perspective. And really the only limit here is the creativity in terms of the form, building the form out, and we'll see how easy that is with drag and drop in a second, but also the creativity in terms of who you're targeting this application to. And you could even have different participant matches for different pieces of your audience to split it up. So that's even possible. So let me show you how to quickly build out the form. So essentially what you're going to want to do first of all is head into the marketplace and check for your event, your campaign, that participant match is installed. So if it isn't, and I pre-installed it here, but if it wasn't, you would click on here and it would ask you your permission to install it. Once you've installed it, it comes up on the live tab. Excuse me. So I click into the live tab and then I see participant match. Now, if I was building it from scratch, I would have a new participant match. I built one a little bit earlier, and what you need to do then is just fill in the details like the name, if it's going to be visible, who it's going to be visible to. Now, the match threshold. I don't know if you remember, but on the audience view, the match results that I showed you, we had a series of matches that were below. Well, they gave a percentage, right? From 100, 67%, and then 33%. Now, if I decide that I don't want to show anybody who doesn't match a particular participant below a certain percentage, I can add that in here. So if I only wanted to show people that matched 100%, I would put 100 in here, etc. And you get the idea. So it's a way to also limit, if you have large numbers of people or potential matches for whatever reason, then it's a way to maybe limit that to the most contextual, succinct matches. Now, I also want to edit the form, okay? So if I go in here, as you can see from last week when I showed you how to do the chatbot, the conversations, it's a drag and drop, same drag and drop. Now I have two questions in here. One's a slider question. How important is networking to you today? And again, you can mix and match all these up. You can change them around. And then I have a choice question, which is, which type of person would you like to network with? Beginner, intermediate, or expert? But let's say that I want to add another choice question. So I drag that in there. I ask the question, what is your favorite hobby or pastime, I could say. I'm going to make it required. I'm going to add reading. I'm going to say TV and film. And I'm going to say walking or hiking. And then I'm going to, for the sake of time, I'm just going to add another. Now, what I would do then is update that, and that would immediately show in the audience view for that form. And I would be asking them then this third question, and then based on that now extra question, they would add that to the matching profile, and I would get back my results. So again, super simple to build, super simple to set up. The only limit here is your creativity and the direction that you want to take it in. So that was participant match. Again, try it out, speak to your account team, speak to your sales team, get information on it, really powerful tool, nice way to break the ice. But onto the main topic. My guest this week is packed full of examples on how to make networking work. And I'm excited to bring him to you today. He's a member of our account team here at SpotMe. He primarily works with accounts based in Europe. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Seb to the weekly show. Welcome, Seb.
Thanks, Tom. And thanks for inviting me onto the show. Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. I'm looking very much forward to it today.
Perfect. Thank you, Seb. Thanks for joining us. Listen, we're going to get on to the examples that you have in a second, but there's two questions I want to ask you before we do that. The first one is, how are we thinking about networking in a virtual sense? Just give us an overview.
Right. So in terms of a virtual sense, you have to think different when you're doing networking activities. So it's not as simple as what it was before, where you could create a simple coffee break, where you could let people mingle together and discuss, have different topics and things. And this is different, and it's not because of the platforms or the limitations of the platforms at all, but rather just because it is a virtual event, as you said. And so having a virtual event actually removes many of the possibilities of what you had in between these sessions at an in-person event. That has to be taken into consideration.
That's so true. I think that mind shift for people is really important, right? You can't simply just drag and drop in person into virtual and then hope that it works. Which leads me to my next question. What are some of the common challenges that people face with virtual networking?
Right. So in terms of networking, I think that the biggest challenges that they face, the first one probably is that they try to replicate what they had done during in-person events. And simply creating a networking coffee and leaving the session open for everybody will just not work. You can't just drop 50 people onto a virtual event and let them chat. They have to really have some kind of lead into the call, to have some kind of topic to discuss. So you have to create a little bit more, to think a bit more about your event and what you're going to do for these networking sessions.
Yeah, I like that. Go ahead. So, sorry, Seb.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, the second reason also why this might not work so well is that not having somebody take the lead on these calls or having a facilitator will not work as well. So if you bring in a facilitator that's leading the discussion, that's bringing in some topics to discuss, that will definitely help as well.
That's awesome. And I think as we go through the examples, we'll get a sense of maybe some of the common themes that come out. So let's jump in. Your first example is an association who were hosting an experience for an external audience. And what I really like about this example is that it's really this nice way of taking something that was in person and making it a really virtual show or experience. Tell us more.
Absolutely, and it's actually my favorite probably because it actually creates something almost tangible of a virtual event. And here the example as a whole is that they actually brought in a barista for one of these networking coffee sessions, and they were filming him while he was making his coffee. So it's sort of something that people can do from home, that they can really share with others. And that's kind of a session, even though it might seem a bit simple at first, it's something out of the ordinary. And people are not expecting that, and it gets the conversations going as well.
Yeah, I really like that. So you were cutting out, I think, slightly, but just to recap then for everybody's benefit, there was essentially what they did was they turned the normal coffee break into an actual barista show where they made the coffee and they encouraged the audience to do the same at home if they could. And I love that. I mean, that's literally making a show out of the break, and it stimulated the conversation. So why maybe was some of the 3 to 5 reasons why that worked well?
I think the first one is that it ties in quite nicely into the event, because it was an event that was for a coffee association. So it was really thought out. It had something to do with the theme of the event, and it was fun. So it's like you bring in something that people are not used to, and you're creating a simple coffee making experience into an actual show, right? So that's probably the first reason why it worked quite well within the theme. It's something that you have to think around the theme of your event and that you have to create. The second reason probably is that it's actually something that people can replicate at home, right? They do have coffee machines, they do have milk and so on and things, so they can try it out. It's something very simple to do for everybody. It's something that they have that they can do from their house. And actually, the last one is actually that you're leveraging the barista's show as a nice way to lead into a discussion related to coffee. So that can create lots and lots of discussions around that, which, again, it does tie in with the theme of the event. So yeah, it was a good one on the clients for
but like you said, right, the magic here isn't that it was coffee per se, but that they really thought about their event, right, and how to spin it and turn something into an example. But it could literally be anything, right? I mean, you could also just do the coffee. I mean, the coffee could work in other environments. You just maybe need to know that part of your audience is passionate about coffee or whatever it may be. But it's so applicable, and I think it just highlights that difference in thinking, right? It's taking that in-person coffee break and really turning it into a coffee experience, and edit and replace the coffee with whatever you like. But it's that transition from in-person to virtual.
Absolutely, and with that, you do get the masses as well, because with lots of platforms, you have like these social aspects as well that you can bring in. So people will probably try to replicate it at home, maybe share what they've tried to do or
Yes.
what they've achieved. Kind of creates a nice way to share an experience with others. And if we think about networking, this is part of the networking aspects as well.
Yes.
Sharing experience, sharing learning across different people while exchanging, while talking to people.
Yeah, it's
So
often a part of the networking people don't really think about is that peer-to-peer sharing on the home feed. I like that. Your next example is one that I think it's building on almost the last one, but it's also really focused on providing this common experience, this common experience for them people to discuss. Tell us about it.
yeah, so the second example is actually for an external facing event, basically. And you know how during these in-person events, you always had networking dinners, networking cocktails at the end of the first day or so on. Well, this one is actually rethinking that into the virtual world. And so if you bring in that experience, what can you do? Well, here what the clients have actually done is that it's quite similar to the barista idea. They brought in a bartender that was actually showing how to make a cocktail, right, on this show. And so with ingredients that they had at home, actually
Yeah.
what they did for this to work quite well is that they sent a list to the participants before that actual 15 minutes.
Yeah, I like
Now,
that.
yeah, that idea might not fill in the entire networking dinner like you had at an in-person event, but it's definitely something that ties in nicely after the first day of the event. You've got a second day, kind of makes a smooth transition between the two, and a fun experience as well for the guests.
It does, and if I think back to a common in-person conference or event that I have attended in the past, you often have those mixers on the first night, and the aim of those mixers is to really get people going on the networking and to feel comfortable and to really find connection at the event before it even starts. And I think this is a really nice way to do that virtually. So what are some of the main reasons why this worked?
Well, first of all, I think the main reason is that it's simple. Everybody can do it at home with home ingredients. You have to try to stick with what people have at hand, what they can do from their homes, especially if you want to make something tangible like this one. The second reason is that it's a nice way to create an optional cocktail session, right? For people to join in, to discuss, to have a chat, maybe even to share their cocktails together afterwards, so they can drink it together over a little video conferencing session and share a little bit their thoughts on what they thought in the session. And the third one is that it can create a healthy competition. So you could be like creating a contest for people to have the best looking drink, for instance.
Nice.
And so again, we're reusing the idea of the home feed here, where people post a little bit, or it doesn't have to be on the homepage. It could be a dedicated feed, right? If you don't want
Right.
your entire feed to be filled up with all these cocktails, but it could be something that's done separately as well, where people are sharing, and really with likes and votes, you can create a healthy competition for the best looking cocktail overall at your event.
Nice. I like that again, just because it's something people can participate in. It's something they can really get to grips with and do at home. And just to say, it doesn't have to be alcoholic, right? It could also be food. It could be any number of things. But as long as you're pre-warning people and giving people a chance to get themselves together before they actually make something, then I think that's a nice thing to do. We have had a couple of questions, so we're going to do the questions before we move on to the last two examples. The first one is from Sandra. She's asking, we're thinking of having live music during the breaks. What do you think the pitfalls would be? Now, I'm going to let you think about that, Seb, but one of the things, Sandra, I would think about is live music might be entertaining, but you would have to think about how to turn that into a networking experience then, if that's the goal of the live music, right? Because it's almost like a passive, it's almost like you're giving someone, you're entertaining somebody rather than drawing them in necessarily. So if you're having live music, nothing wrong with that, but maybe think, if the goal is networking here, maybe think about ways you can get people to participate after the fact, right? Maybe it's building out lyrics, maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's commenting on the song, or maybe it's part of your gamification to spot keywords in the song. Think of ways you can really draw people in and drive that connection. Seb, any thoughts on your end?
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with you on that one. It's something where you have to kind of open up that conversation and leave it to the guests to be able to talk about something afterward. If it's just a music concert, it might not be enough to go. You have to go that extra mile, and as you said, maybe having like a debate over song lyrics or something like that. Tying it in with something else is something that could definitely work, I think. Like, for example, it could be something like a karaoke contest, maybe, that we do. Simple thing. This is just on the top of my mind here. But it wouldn't necessarily have to be something that is continuous over like 15 minutes. A live concert, for example, might not be the best way to do it.
Yeah, and really thinking about driving that networking. Sandra also brought up hopefully I'm interpreting the question right here. Sandra also asks about the seventh inning stretch. So I think what this means is like a physical stretch during the conference. That, at least that's, Sandra, what I'm taking it to mean. And the question really is, how do you build participation in that? Seb, I'll let you think about it for a second. Sandra, I think you're going to really want to think about how to signpost people. There's two things, right? Signposting them to when this is happening and why it's happening. And if it's related to a good cause or if it's not, it doesn't matter. But really signposting people. And again, gamification, notifications, they're all your friends here, but make it part of the overall experience. The other thing you're going to want to think about here is, how do you get people to buy in? I've seen people, for instance, when they're hosting virtual experiences, they might send people like a physical goodie bag, a swag bag. Maybe as part of that swag bag, you're sending them like a sweatband or a headband or something that just kind of gets them reminded to participate in the exercise. So just two ideas off the top of my head. Anything else, Seb, from your perspective?
Yeah, I would think on that one that if actually we even take it out of the event world nowadays, in the virtual world that it is, you see, for example, online yoga sessions, online gym sessions, and so on. And it's definitely something that can be brought on to the virtual world events. That would be a good idea as well. It does get people going. Having this optional session in the evening after a hard day at work could be a nice way to end the day and to let people a little bit discuss some different topics maybe after the yoga session. Networking doesn't have to be about specifically exchanging contacts, right? It can be just simply being together in a session. That would definitely work, I think.
Yeah, great. We've had a few more questions come in, but I want to share the examples as well. So we'll do a few more examples and we'll get back to some questions. Your third example is a tech company with an internal audience, and they've really gone, I love this because they've really added that serendipitous element back into the networking. What did they do, Seb?
Right, so this example is really borrowed from the dating world. It's almost bringing the dating world into a corporate atmosphere. So what the clients did here is that they set up various two-way video networking sessions where they brought in specific groups of people. So like 3, 4, 5 minutes sessions where people were brought in groups, so maybe 3 or 4 people. And it's like a round table, basically. They had to go in, they had a list of questions as well, and they would ask each other and kind of meet other people. And so that's a little bit the idea behind this one. And it worked quite well because people were switching from one table to the next. A lot of people were engaged in this. And even if you don't necessarily want, I know some people do not necessarily want to participate in these activities. So it could be something that you filter out when you let them into the platform or when they register to the event, whether they want to be part of such experiences as well.
Yeah, I like that. I like it because you're adding a serendipitous moment. You're adding that unknown factor for people to access. But critically, I think you're also setting some ground rules. Tell us, maybe I've given the game away, but tell us why this works so well.
Yeah, I think the ground rules, for instance, for this one to work, you definitely need to prepare a list of questions that people have to ask each other. So kind of giving them some kind of guidance of for when they go into that room. One of the reasons why it works quite well is that a lot of people know the concept but never experienced it. So why not introduce it to the corporate world? It's something that's new. It's something that will feel different again. That is original as well. The second reason is that people also get to meet other people that they would have never met otherwise. Even at a physical event, they would have probably not ended up with that person at a dinner or something like this. So it's like as if at a dinner table, at an in-person event, you were assigning tables for people. It's a bit the same concept here, but in the virtual world, you always have to think people might have other things to do as well. So you keep it sort of short. And the third reason why it works as well is that, well, what makes it work basically is that if you split it into small groups, 2 to 5 people, it does encourage the discussion. Having 50 people into a Zoom call, just doesn't work in a virtual way. You can't have side chats and side conversations that are going on at the same time in a Zoom call. That's why keeping it small, keeping it to a limited number of people does make it work as well.
Nice. I like that a lot. We're getting a ton of questions coming in, so we're gonna go very quickly through our fourth example, then we'll answer the rest of the questions. So the fourth example, very quickly: professional services, internal audience, a really lovely, flexible way to get people talking. What did they do?
So here again, it was very similar to the previous example where people were split in groups. And what they had to do is that in groups of 2 within a bigger group, maybe 10 people, they had to pitch to each other business ideas. And based on that, they had to rate each other. Of course, you leave some time for the introductions at the beginning to make sure that people get to know each other as well, because they don't know with who they've ended up. But having this kind of peer-to-peer feedback is quite nice for them, and it does create this team building. This was for an internal event, so that's why it's also quite applicable, because your team is going to be stronger out of this networking experience, and they're going to get feedback from each other as well.
Yeah, I like that. And it kind of goes with some of the audience questions, so I'm going to approve those now. Do we have any advice, and it's linked to this example, do we have any advice on how to make two-way video breakouts work without it being very hectic? Like, how do you do that? And it's very much tied to this example of why it worked. So what did they do to make this example work with the two-way video?
So here with the two-way video, they did 2 things. They split it into small groups, and they had a facilitator per room as well. You need to make sure that you have the manpower as well to man all of these kind of smaller sessions, to make sure people are actually doing what they're supposed to do in these sessions and not just wandering around and not doing anything. It's very similar to an in-person event. You always need to have a facilitator in a room to kind of guide people. Same concept here, except in the virtual world.
Yeah, exactly. And so just a reminder how to make two-way video work, and indeed a roundtable. Jessica, I know you're asking that, is basically, yes, people can have their video on. You definitely need a moderator. It should be a small group so that it doesn't get too hectic and you actually give people a chance to have a real discussion. And ideally, even I've seen people set time limits on introductions, time limits on the ability to like present or speak. So definitely those 3 elements: small groups, moderator, and potentially guidelines around timing will help it not get too hectic. And yes, ideally, it's a small enough group where everyone can have their video on. It really, really helps the networking. I'm just looking. Go ahead. Yes.
Sorry, Tom. Yeah, I was just thinking I would even add something to it. It's keeping these sessions short. That's perfect for it, because if you have such very long sessions, you lose people at some point. So during these virtual events, you cannot have networking sessions that are an hour and a half long like we used to have in the physical world, right? So keeping these sessions short, even for this, that applies to this example as well, does help. So you have a 10-minute session with 2 minutes per team or something like that. That does make it more easier for people to cope with.
Yeah, fantastic. I like that. I like that top tip. One more question, and then we'll end the day. The question is, it's coming from Brittany. What are some good prizes for an international audience besides cash? I'm going to let you think about that for a second, Seb. One of the things that came to my mind, Brittany, when I read the question was, think about swag, right? Maybe there's a grand prize that's sent out from the event planner to the winning audience member. Maybe it's different. Maybe it's a physical item, right? You don't necessarily have to think just because you have a virtual audience, it has to be a virtual prize. It can still be something tangible, but you just take that extra step to send it out to them. That was my thought. Seb, anything from your end? Good international game prizes?
Yeah, I would say one good example that I saw actually this week on an event is that they actually were granting access to the next event for free. That was the top winner of the thing. So it actually gets the competition going for these paid events. Of course, this makes sense. It does not apply for the ones which are free to attend.
Good thoughts. Listen, that's an action-packed show. It's gone a lot quicker than it normally does. Seb, you're an awesome guest. Thank you so much. Whether you're watching live or on demand, thank you for tuning in. And thank you, Seb, for joining me this week.
Thanks, Tom, for having me on this show. And have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, everybody. Goodbye.